Yo, what up, y'all? Welcome to Vancity, Beats, Eats, and more. My name is Kazi, and I'm joined today by Forrest Mortifee. We out here on the unceded and stolen lands of the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations, what you might colonially know as Vancouver, BC, and what we have known and loved as Vancity. So if you're tuning in today with us for the first time, this is season 2 of our show where we love to talk to the creative music, food, and art scene of our city and get to know the people who make the city vibrant and creative and probably a lot of things that you might not have ever guessed of Vancouver. We actually have a really thriving creative scene out here, and being able to sit down with artists to talk to them more about their creative journeys is something we like to do. So today we're joined by Forrest Mortifee. If it's your first time ever hearing about him, here's a beautiful little bio that was written. Forrest Mortifee, him, is a recording artist, an ancient futurist, and impact innovator hailing from Vancouver, Canada. He embodies his creative vision through spiritual dynamism and queer sanctification, initiating an important progression in the narrative surrounding joy, gender, and human evolution. Featured on BBC Radio 1, the Oprah Winfrey Network, and Forbes, Forrest channels music and messages poignantly suited for our times. Usually, I don't really read everybody's bios, but coming across this bio of yours was super potent, Forrest. Mainly because ancient futurist, spiritual dynamism, queer sanctification. What I love about bios is that they mark such a time and a moment of an artist or a creative of where they are in their journey. And even going through the process of writing it, it's like a self-manifestation practice of okay, that's who I was before, but who am I today and who am I projecting into the future? And so, yeah, I wanted to ask you about writing this bio, if we could start there today.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, really appreciate it. This bio, I feel like I'm always revamping my bio. Every time someone asks me for one, I touch it up. I haven't heard this version of the bio in a while, so it's cool to hear you read it out. A lot of it, still resonates. It's not that old, obviously. But regarding ancient futurism, queer sanctification, spiritual dynamism, my spiritual identity is the backbone of my life experience, and my worldview is based on that which might not be perceived with the 5 senses. That's really the focal point of what makes me thrive and healthy. So that's why it shows up like that in there.
I love that.
Yeah.
What is an ancient futurist?
Yeah, to me, being an ancient futurist means a lot of things. I think what comes to mind is that as we evolve as a human species and a planet that shares a heartbeat, shares a soul, we're moving towards an upcoming timeline that resembles and embodies our ancient wisdom. And I also think that time is malleable, and I am in communication often with my higher selves and my future selves. And so for me, combining the ancient wisdom that lives in me, lives in all of us, while also combining the future intelligence and light that lives in me and lives in all of us, that's where I feel comfortable. So that's why I call myself an ancient futurist.
Yo, that's so tight.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I've never really thought of it in that way before, but that makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
Yeah. So with Forrest, I actually have heard of Forrest way back when Forrest used to be Claire Mortifee. I heard about you when I was living in Toronto. I was writing for music blogs and doing my own kind of thing, covering different artists. And so that's when I had seen your name on the bill with like Aero the Knot, working with Potato Head people. Such a soulful voice, so much range, and your runs that you could do, you know? And then it was funny because then I moved back to Vancouver. You moved to the east. You were in Toronto. And then that's when you had gone by Clear Mortifee. And again, like hearing more of your music transitional, the transition through your musical journey and artistic journey, coming into your queer gender identity. And then last year, I think, was the first time we really actually got to connect IRL in real life, because we were working together for Vancouver Mural Festival, and it was just before you had announced that you were now going by Forrest and he, him pronouns. And so I would love to hear from you of, you know, as someone who has reincarnated so many times in this lifetime, what is like a word or a phrase that you would use to describe your different incarnations?
I think like gratitude is a really big one for me. Feels like a very unique privilege to get to live multiple lifetimes in one lifetime.
Or sorry, what I meant is like a word or a phrase for Claire, for Clear, and
that's
for Forrest.
cute. That's cute. Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think like when I think about Claire and that part of my life, I think about my inner child. When I think about Clear, I think about like blossoming, like a bud just like opening. And when I think about Forrest, I feel very grounded, both to the earth and to the cosmos. I feel grounded in both directions. Yeah.
Can we start from the beginning and talk about like the beginning of your artistic and creative journey? Like how did you grow up, and how was music and other art forms part of your life?
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in a musical family, so, you know, Christmas time, there's like 60 people in a room singing carols, hella harmonies. So that's kind of like the soup that I grew up in. I have 2 aunts who are professional singers, and also storytellers, musical theater, playwrights. So
all here in Vancity?
All here in Vancouver, yeah. Exactly. So, yeah, I've been on stage since I was 6. I was a singing ladybug to start off. Humble beginnings.
That is so cute. Yeah. What did singing ladybug sing?
I don't even remember, honestly. But, yeah, I've been on stage for a long time, and I think I did about 15 musicals and plays before I graduated high school, so theater was a big part of my creative upbringing. I was in school choirs, children's ball choir, and started writing my own music around age 14, and started playing and sharing it around 16, 17. And then, yeah, connected with Aero, Potato Head people, that whole crew around, 2010, just as I was coming out of high school. And yeah, I remember the first like hook I sang on for one of their tracks. I was so nervous to get in the studio, but yeah, just kind of progressed naturally. At that time, I was playing a lot of songs on the piano. That was where I started writing music, in my parents' basement on the piano. And yeah, I just haven't really stopped. I love writing music. I love performing. I feel so much joy when I'm on stage singing. And yeah, now I think I've released, I was looking at this, I think it's like somewhere between 60 and 90 songs of mine are out now. So yeah, I'm really grateful to get to share my journey and my voice, and hang out with friends while I do it. So it's a good time.
How did you go from Claire to Clear?
Yeah, I was living in LA at the time, and I was kind of bouncing between LA and Toronto. And I was dating this guy who was in Toronto, and I was also seeing a girl in LA, and he knew about this, and she knew about him. And, you know, he said something like, or one of his friends had said something like, "Oh, are you sure that's your girl? Like, it doesn't, it doesn't look like it. And we were just, me and this girl would just be all queued up on Instagram, just vibing, thrifting, like
thrifting in LA.
being silly.
Yeah.
And I remember around that time feeling like I wanted to be allowed to be free. And I think that, now I identify as a gay man, and that was how I felt at that time. I was like, if I was a gay man, I'd be allowed to be up on here, like, I don't know, like showing my chest for one, like I could wear mesh, and just, I felt like I wanted more freedom. And so it was actually November 11th. It was 11/11, which I think is pretty iconic and epic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and me and this girl, we were out like smoking a joint in the sunshine, and I was just crying and letting go of all of this internalized homophobia that I had been carrying. And I remember when we got back to her apartment, I said to her, the truth is my spirit is non-binary. My spirit doesn't have a gender, and I want to be able to live in that truth and in the freedom that affords me. And in that moment, it felt like there was angels in the cells of my shoulders lifting me up. It was such an incredible sensation and moment for me. And that was when I realized that I was non-binary and changed my name to Clear.
Okay. And then we were in Clear for how long?
I changed my name to Forrest on my birthday last year. So let's see. I think I was like Clear for 3 years. Yeah.
And then to go from Clear to Forrest.
3 or 4 years.
How did that come about?
Yeah, I wanted a name that felt more masculine and grounded in my identity as a man. And I had been brainstorming what names I wanted, and Forrest had come up as like a strong contender, maybe like 9 months previous to my birthday. And it was late at night on my birthday last year, and I was hanging out with a good friend of mine who's also trans, and I was like, yeah, well, I really like the name Forrest, but like I'm kind of scared to change it. And right when I said that, I was like, that's not a good enough reason not to do it. So I was like, okay, like I'll go by Forrest now. And so that's my name now.
When it comes to transitioning, would you say that you were wanting to grow into and become Forrest, or would you say that you were uncovering and peeling back layers to reveal and step into what was already within?
Oh my God,
Forrest?
I love this question. I think it's both. I honestly think it's both.
Expand.
Yes, okay, I shall. I thought you were like, expand. I was like, yes, I did expand into it. And I shall expand upon it.
Yeah.
I think that my queer masculinity is a place of rest for me. It's a place of freedom. It's a place of authenticity and the relief and release that comes with not needing to perform. Kind of like, when you're hanging out with like your very best friends or like your favorite family members and you don't even have to speak. You can just chill. That's what it feels like to be a man for me and to be Forrest. So in that way, it feels like I was peeling back what was on the outside to just be present in what was honest on the inside. And I think along with that journey, I've also been growing up, through time. And so I've been aging and maturing and gaining wisdom, life experience. And so it's sometimes it's hard for me to know what was the transition and what was simply me growing up and going through my Saturn return, all these things. But I think expanding into someone who cares for themselves as much as I do presently has been a big part of the journey as well.
Dope. Yeah, it makes sense that it would be a bit of both.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both.
do you have, or do you remember the exact moment in which you were like, I want to now like really officially transition, you know, because my soul can identify it. I feel it on the inside, but now I want to go through it on this physical human level. And what it took for you to get to that place to like make that decision.
Yeah.
Super brave, you know?
Thank you. Yeah. Earth requires us to be courageous. Earth is a tough place for everyone. And for me, listening to the physical sensations inside my body has helped me to create a life for myself where instead of needing to just struggle to survive, I can relax in my life. And so I think that there's a great courage that also I had to hold with myself before transitioning because of that as well. The courage to stay and the courage to live and to participate in society.
That's real, yo. That's so real.
Yeah. So there was that time, and I think once I realized, there was different like moments of realization, but I think as I continued to realize that I was a guy and that I needed to transition in order to feel really healthy, it was kind of like a pragmatic thing, like, okay, like let's do this then. I've got your back, and I would rather gain myself and let whatever isn't for me fall away than live for like an ambiguous other who has their own life that they're focused on. So I think the moment that stands out for me as when I realized that I needed to take steps to medically transition. I was at a Black Lives Matter protest in downtown LA, summer of 2020. And, I had my chest binder on. I had a short haircut. I was wearing masculine clothing. I might have even had like some facial contour on to like try and masculinize myself more. And I was with my manager at the time, who's a cis woman, and this person came up to us, kind of like asking us for change, and we were like, sorry, we don't have change on us, we don't have anything on us. And they're like all good ladies. And when they like called us ladies, I was like, dang, like, I remember the thought that went through my mind was like, I think I'm gonna have to go home now and not leave my house for at least 3 days. And I just remember wanting to just peel my skin off. I think that gender dysphoria, for folks who haven't experienced it, can be hard to describe, but it...
What does it mean?
Yeah, gender dysphoria means experiencing... how could I explain this? I suppose it means feeling like you're not being seen for the gender that you are.
And that you identify with or feel.
And that you identify with or that you feel you are on the inside. Yeah. Yeah. Or that you don't feel like your present experience is aligned with that inner experience. So I got the gender dysphoria in that moment. And
did you do the 3 days in the house?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not, but I stuck around. I stayed at the protest, saw it through. But I think it was in that moment realizing, there was also a feeling of like wanting to not be on the earth anymore in that moment, and like really being like, I don't think I'm down for this. And in that moment as well, I was like, you know what? I need to start taking testosterone. I need to start taking hormone replacement therapy, and just see how that feels and go from there. So I did. I got testosterone shortly after that, and I've been on it for just over 3 years now.
Two things I want to say to that. A, as somebody who's a very spiritual being and understanding that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, especially on those like points where you're like, none of this is real anyways? Like, can I just, this is what I was saying on my birthday when I turned 35. I'm like, can I just like reincarnate already into like a dolphin or a butterfly and just like live my next life? Because I'm like, I'm good on this one. You know, it's easy to just kind of want to not be here anymore. But at the same time, it's like, it's an understanding of like, there's a reason and a gift in this human experience. And I think part of it is facing those challenges of when we feel that way. And like, how do we tap into something deeper, bigger than ourselves, to make use of this time that we have to allow ourselves to evolve on this planet, or like to help other people also like heal or experience love, you know?
That's beautiful.
And I'm thankful that you've decided to continue and to become Forrest.
Yeah, me too.
You know? Okay, and then the second thing I wanted to say, I have forgotten.
Not to worry.
No, but I'd like to remember.
I'm sure you will.
No, let's backtrack. What were we saying again?
Sip from my really cool mug.
Yeah, you sip your cool mug of water. I was talking about that. You were talking about, then you made the decision, and now we're here. It's not coming to me.
That's all right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well.
Maybe it'll come back. If not, all good.
Well, okay, so now we're here, Forrest. How does it feel to now step into the... Now I remember. This is all you have to do is just rant a little bit and then let your brain catch up.
You're doing amazing.
Okay, so this was my other point. I love that you brought up 3 years testosterone. When I was going through the archives of Forrest, I was...
Well, you went through the archives of Forrest?
Oh, I went through the archives. We'll get into that.
The archives are deep.
They're
Good
deep.
for you.
So I went to the archives, and you have these recorded videos of you singing different covers during different markers of like 4 months on testosterone, 6 months on testosterone. You were doing covers of like Daniel Caesar and like singing these songs and then reflecting back on the camera like what it was that you were experiencing of your voice. And so I wanted to ask, how did you feel about experiencing your voice change? And was there any sort of like grieving over things that you could do before that you don't do now, or also a celebrating of what you can do now that you couldn't before?
Love this question. And thank you for checking out the archives. I kind of just like did that project and didn't expect necessarily anyone to go that deep because they go so deep.
Oh my God, we're going to get into it. I'm saving it for a little bit later.
Okay, nice.
You snorted. I love you.
I did. Okay, well, yeah, I wanted to document my vocal transition. And I think that like, that was something that was scary, was thinking that like, you know, will I be able to sing after I start testosterone? I didn't know for sure. And I had to become comfortable with giving up my voice to gain myself. And
damn.
So like letting go of my attachment to my artist identity was something I had to do before choosing to medically transition. And I did, and I got to keep them both, so I'm happy.
What could your voice do before that it doesn't do now?
It does do now. Honestly, I think the main thing is I didn't really have a vocal break before, so my lower range flowed into my falsetto range with very little audible shift. But now my mid-range, my break, I have a break now. So
what does that mean?
It basically means that there are a couple notes where it's kind of this sticky transition between a richer, warmer sound and a softer, higher, airier sound. And in that range, it might be a bit harder for me to hit the pitch super clean. And it might sound a bit clunky as I shift from a lower to a higher register.
Okay.
So that's the main difference in my voice. I ran into an artist called Kate Yon on the Seawall a moment ago, actually, and I was saying that, like, even having the discernment between, like, should I sing this section of the song in an octave up or the octave down is something I'm still learning. So yeah, that's the process that I'm in right now. I lost a couple notes on my high register, but I can also, like, I can sing pretty high still, which is nice, and then gain some notes on the low register. So vibing. Yeah.
What do you like about your new register? What new things your voice can do?
I think it's sexy.
Yes!
I really like being able to sing low. I think also I play with like rap adjacent flows in my songs, and I have for a long time, where it's usually pitched, but kind of the pacing is kind of
Rhythmic?
Yeah, it's rhythmic, and so I like the way that now has the opportunity to sound with my low register. Yeah, and I think also that there's a vulnerability that comes with imperfection, and I feel grateful that I can bring that to a performance now, because I think it makes it more emotionally compelling in certain circumstances. And I think that that is more valuable than perfection in a performance. So that's also been a cool mindset shift that I've had.
And also, what is perfection in a performance? I found some of the best performances happen, like they were imperfect, and that's what made them perfect.
Exactly. So I think it's really helped me to like gain an appreciation for that. And that applies to like most of life, I think, as well. So
that's so cool. Who are your major musical influences, either throughout time or even currently?
I always need to say Erykah Badu and D'Angelo first.
I knew you were going to say that.
His mom and dad.
Yeah.
Georgia Ann Muldrow is someone who's really inspiring to me. Little Dragon was a big influence. Amy Winehouse.
Yes.
Feist.
Yes.
Emily Haynes and like Metric. I listened to a lot of that growing up. Stars. Yeah, those are a few off the top.
Any creatives, artists, or people in general that you feel really inspired you as a human being or as an artist or creative in your journey?
Yeah, there's this dude named Olafur Olafsson who creates like large-scale art installations that usually have a commentary around the climate. I really like his perspective. He's been very inspiring to me. I have begun the stages of designing a building.
What?
And so like space and kind of architecture is also something that's been interesting to me. So I don't know many like specific names, but certainly there's been like a lot of inspiration that I've found in like those realms as well.
Okay, rewind. Wait, why are we designing a building right now? And what is this building for?
It's called A Building to Be Alone In.
Okay, yes.
And it's basically like a very large space where I know that I'm not being surveyed, and I can be alone with myself and alone in nature as well. So very large saltwater swimming pool, large mossy gardens, great acoustics, just lots of space to play and be with myself and spirit. So yes.
This is so cool. Is this a building, like a private building for yourself that you want to build, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It is, and it's also a space where other folks could go to be alone. So yeah, who knows if it will be built, but it's something that I have dreamt on, and I have an NFT that kind of explores the design of it a bit more as well.
Very cool. Yeah. Speaking of NFTs, this was something really cool that when we first started reconnecting, and what I love is that like I'm entering this part of your journey as Forrest and getting to know you here and now. And I feel like our friendship has really only grown from this coming year. And so when we were catching up on like, you know, what's been good, what are you working on these days, that was the introduction of you talking to me about the Museum of Forrest, how you were like going through a whole archival of everything that you've done, stuff that's been on the internet, because the internet's been around for a while now, so there's a lot of stuff of all of us on the internet. And you going through this process where you were really celebrating yourself and celebrating your own personal journey, as well as like healing and moving through anything that, you know, difficult emotions that come up with like contending with our past selves. But yeah, you created something called the Museum of Forrest. Tell us about it.
For sure. Yeah, so the Museum of Forrest is basically it's an archive of my life's work to date that I was commissioned to create by my patron. His name's CY. He's a legend. We've been working together for just over a year now.
What kind of legend?
He really believes in artist storytelling, and his vision for how to bring storytelling onto the blockchain, which is basically a form of technology where we have autonomy over our work and ownership over our work, and also the ability to exchange money for our work, unlike Instagram. So yeah, he really believes in artist storytelling, and he's like, I want you to basically share your creative process through NFTs every week. And so that's what I've been doing for over a year now. And it got to a point where we wanted somewhere vibey to house these stories, and we wanted to contextualize them. So I worked with another amazing creative who's here in Vancouver named Anna Wang, and she helped to design the Museum of Forrest, which is basically a webpage with 4 exhibits where there's a timeline of my journey and a creative theme for each of the 4 exhibits, and you can go and witness, you know, this kind of self-curated collection of me and my stories. And then at the bottom there's the Archives of Forrest, which has over 900 data points that I found of myself online over the years of my work, and it's all color-coded and categorized, so you can like dive in and sift through this giant Notion document however your heart desires.
I love using Notion. Sidebar.
Amazing. Notion's a champion.
Yeah, I first used Notion when I was working with Nancy Lee and Kieran Bumber on their project, and yeah, you're right. It's a great way to organize things based on like, I was like, so when I was going on Museum of Forrest, I was sorting through things by date, but then I was like, oh, pre-transition, during transition. And yeah, there was everything from old music videos, past articles, and interviews you've done with different online magazines, to these like TikTok videos. And it's so expansive of your journey thus far, which is really cool.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, and the website is beautiful.
Thank you.
Very interactive.
Yeah.
How did you get into what we call now the Web3 space? Yeah, which for anyone who doesn't know, Web3 is kind of like the future of internet / we are in it now, but I think we're just, you either get it and you're on it, or you're gonna catch up because it's happening. Yeah. And it includes things like the blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs. For anyone who doesn't really understand what that is, how would you describe or explain that?
I feel like Web3 is still kind of the Wild West of the internet. I have been in this space for about 2 years now. I got into it because a good friend of mine, who's also a producer and DJ from Vancouver, his name's Pat Locke. He created the Fellowships program at a decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO, which is basically a Web3 organization. there's a DAO called Friends with Benefits, FWB. And it's basically musicians, creatives, and builders in the space who are, brought together under a similar ethos and also a shared cryptocurrency called FWB. And so he created a fellowships program to bring more diverse folks into the space, and creatives who might not have the means to be, to buy into the DAO. And he was like, you should apply. So I applied and I got in, and I remember filling out the application. I felt like I could bring all of myself to the table for really the first time, where I wasn't being pigeonholed just as an artist, but it felt like all parts of who I was held equal weight. And I really value that about the Web3 space. It's very much like, come as you are. What are you passionate about? What do you want to build? Let's make it happen. So yeah, I got into FWB late 2021, released my first music NFT, which was Prophecy of the Morning Dew, which is a song of mine, in I think February, March 2022. CY was the collector of that NFT, and that was how we got chatting.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it kind of went from there. And we're actually putting on a artist mentorship program called Starter Packs over the next 6 weeks, where I'm going to be mentoring other musicians who are in Web3 to share their stories on the blockchain, just like imperfect, raw as they are, for a span of a month. And we'll have those collections, so I'm excited for that too.
Wow. Okay, so that's how the connection happened with CY.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
How would you describe the difference between putting your music out as an NFT versus like the traditional route that most music artists are doing right now through like Spotify or Apple Music?
I do both still.
Yeah.
Bless you. I do both. I think that the difference for me is that when I put a music NFT out, there is the potential for remuneration and the potential for fans to support me directly. Excuse me. So that's one piece of it. Another piece is, because I do put out music NFTs for free as well, so folks can collect them, have them in their crypto wallet to have and to hold as part of their collection of pieces of art from artists that they love. So that feels good, just to have people show like an action that they're saying, your work is significant to me and I want to have it as part of my collection. Also, the platform that I release on, which is called Zora, does have creator rewards, so I still do get some kickback, even though the NFT is free for them to purchase. And yeah, I think as well the fact that there is a permanence to the blockchain, as opposed to if Spotify goes down or Instagram goes down, my work is lost. But for me, having my work on the blockchain makes me feel more confident that it will stick around. And that was something I noticed as well when I was creating the archives of Forrest, is that there's some things that I went to look up and the links were broken, they're not there anymore. So knowing that I get to have my work, stand the test of time feels good for me as an artist.
So cool.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah, that it's really cool that you've tapped into that space and you're talking about it. What do you think is, I guess, the future of art making and music making, and specifically for yourself, and then what you hope for the rest of our communities?
Nice. I think I will keep on making music because I love it, and keep making music with my friends and telling my stories, and continuing to know and love myself better through that process. I feel like I find out things about myself through having the opportunity to share them through music, so I am grateful for that. And I look forward to doing more live performance. I think that as I'm coming into myself as Forrest, I feel this pull in me to, do more live performance, which is something that I haven't ever really focused on directly before. So I look forward to that. And for our communities, I wish love upon us. I wish love and self-love upon us. And I think that self-love is an action that's actually very simple. Just literally saying to ourselves, I love you, and there's nothing to forgive. Everything's perfect. And allowing that to seep into the cracks that are hurting. So I wish that on the artists, self-love, and I trust that that will continue to give space for their authenticity and their stories to blossom and be shared and be held by us and received by us. It's always a gift for us to receive each other.
I love that. How about the future of art making and creative storytelling or music making, especially in this ever increasing technological world we're living in, and in Web3 space, etc., etc.
I think that the Web3 space is going to continue to become smoother as a user experience, and I think that that will help to onboard a lot more folks to it, where there's less of an accessibility barrier to it. It's easier to just use it and vibe and hang out in the space. That being said, if people are curious, I encourage them to contact me if they want to kind of see what route in could be a good fit. And I think that as technology evolves, we are also evolving our hearts, and our hearts are technology, and our capacity for love is the greatest technology of all. And it's one...
Ooh, that really just kind of sank in.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yes. So that's like the technology that I'm working on cultivating within myself the most, while holding compassion for the parts of me that are still crunchy, which will always be there, and that's okay. I love them too. They're invited. But I think that as we, as a human species, continue to cultivate our inner technologies of love, the way that we engage in systems like the music industry and technologies on the outside will become a product of that love. So for me, that's the main focus, is how can we continue to increase our capacity for love and compassion for ourselves and therefore each other. And from that place, I have no doubt that the systems around us that we swim in, work in, live in, will continue to evolve in a way that feels better for more of us to get to thrive within. So that's how I see it.
Wow. I love that part about, seeing ourselves also as technological beings that will continue to evolve and advance. It brought the whole, nature part of me with, I don't know, I just saw myself as a nature robot type.
Amazing.
Yeah, but not robot, but gears whirring and things actually upgrading.
Yeah.
I was like, you want an update? Hit the update button. I'm updating.
Yes.
Yes,
that part.
Which is genius. That's so sick. That's gonna stick with me for a while.
I'm happy about that. I love that. That's awesome.
Are there parts of yourself that you still struggle with, and how do you contend with that?
Yeah, definitely there are parts of myself I still struggle with, and I think there will always be. How do I contend with it? I could love, you already know I was going to say it, but I really work on being able to see the parts of myself that are hurting, that feel shame, that feel guilt, sadness, fear, and I try and give them space to speak and share the emotional experiences that they are having within me, and then give them love and hear them out. and validate their pain like you would want a good friend to do if you were really hurting. And so really having a relationship with the different parts of me where there is my higher self, there is my unconditionally loving self always available to witness the parts of me that are the crunchiest or having a hard day or are working to break out of a pattern that I feel like is overdue for a switch up. So that's how I work with those parts of me. Just give them love, compassion, and let them know that they don't even need to change for me to love them.
How does spirituality play into your life? You know, it seems like the way that you're talking, there's a lot of personal growth and work that you've done to even get to a place where you can express yourself and communicate those things to yourself and to others, that this is what you do for yourself. Like, how did spirituality come into your life? Did you grow up religious, or?
I did not grow up religious. How did spirituality come into my life? When did it come into my life?
Yeah, because part of this deep dive I've done on the Museum of Forrest was seeing like breathwork videos and meditation videos that you were doing. And I was like, wait, what? I never knew this about Forrest.
Yeah.
Like, we could have gotten down on this like so long ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was really cool surprise to see that about you, which I hadn't known.
Amazing. Thank you. I think spirituality, you know, I used to really struggle with my mental health. And it was the cure to depression for me, was having a relationship with my creator and that faith and that trust that came with that relationship. And that has really sustained me, and it continues to, that faith. And I think as I continue to lean into it deeper and learn more about myself as a multi-dimensional being and learn more about metaphysics and the importance of love as the technology that creates synchronicity and flow and abundance and joy and connection and all these things that I want in my life, I'm just like, cool, well, like I'll just focus on unconditional love as much as I can and see how I can work it in. So that's really what I'm focused on at this point in my journey. And it's feeling good, you know. Still always going to be tough moments, but I think it's the map that guides me through those moments.
Were there spiritual traditions that you were studying that gave you this vocabulary, knowledge?
Not really. I think I've definitely like looked into different spiritual traditions and felt a resonance with Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism at different times in my journey. And they all help to inform like the pool of wisdom that I've gotten to pull from. I honestly think like there's a lot of incredible teachers on YouTube who I'm like listening to a lot. There's a lot of like wisdom in astrology that comes to me as well through the YouTubes. Shout outs like Molly McCord, Kyle Cease, Bashar, Phil Good. Lots of amazing teachers, and I think that's so great about like social media, and like YouTube for me is just a space where I go, where I can receive a lot of affirmation around the path that I'm on as well, and increase my personal.
Back in the city and creating art here, reconnecting with community and making new community, because a lot of people have also come here in that time.
Totally.
I feel like I'm experiencing a new wave of Vancity arts and culture. What are you excited about here?
Yeah, I mean, I love being home so much. I lived away for about a decade. Victoria, Montreal, LA, Toronto, and Oakland were the cities that I lived in. And, you know, I didn't know if I was ever going to move back. And I think when I got to a point in my transition, which I was really like going through in California, when my family, you know, was gendering me correctly and my mom was calling me son, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I just missed my family so much. Like this wave came over me that I felt like I hadn't really tapped into while I had been living away as much. And I moved home very shortly after that. I think feeling like I can be myself around my family, people who I care so much about and also care so much what they think of me. Feeling like I can feel relaxed around those people has just been such a huge gift for me. And they're all here in Vancouver. So yeah, I love hanging out with them. I love getting to love them from up close. I love getting to be a family member who no longer is, you know, bathing in grief so much. I held a lot of grief in my life before transitioning.
Grief of?
I didn't know what it was. It just felt like grief. And I think that was kind of how the depression manifested. Perhaps it was grief of my authentic self in retrospect, but I didn't know I was trans for so long. So,
how did they embrace you? Was it a journey as well?
It was a journey. Yeah, I had to set a lot of boundaries and communicate my needs a lot. But they've gotten to a place where they are so celebratory of me. Like when I got my new birth certificate, like my dad called me right away and it was like, oh my God, this is such a big moment. Congratulations, you know, and like my mom, even like before I was, you know, passing as a man and before folks were gendering me correctly in public, my mom would introduce me to people as her son. And it's things like that where they've just, really been incredibly supportive and loving. And yeah, it was a process. There were some sticky months and years in there. But now that we're at a place where they're able to embrace me in a way that feels so good for me, and I'm able to receive that love from them, yeah, those relationships are really close and really important to me. So that's a massive part of being back in Vancouver for me. I think the reason I moved back is to be around them, and yeah, I kick it with them all the time. So shout outs to my fam.
Yes.
Yeah, and like being back in the creative community here in Vancouver is really cool. Like I feel like I'm getting my sea legs again, getting a lay of the land. Yeah, now that I've been back for a good 18 months or so, I feel in flow, which feels really nice. Yeah, I got some shows coming up. I'm going to be at the Cobalt with Bungalow the Band next Wednesday. Going to be at the Fox Cabaret.
Woo, woo. I'm hosting.
Yes, on the 21st.
Yes, as part of Indie
Fest.
Fest.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm also actually going to be at the Fox on the 13th with Noble Oak and Days of Lavender. So 3 shows coming up this month, which will be fun. And yeah, it's just so great to be a part of the community here. And I feel comfortable, and that means a lot to me. Yeah.
What do you think of the scene, the arts and culture scene of Vancouver, especially coming back in with new eyes?
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of kindness. And there's a decent amount of infrastructure for it. I think it's really cool that we have the grants that we do have here, which is something that like is not the vibe in the States. So it's really cool to see how like that creates opportunities for community building and performance.
Yay, keep giving us money.
Yes,
Canada Council for the Arts, BC Arts Council, Creative BC, shout outs.
Yes, thank you
we
so
love
much.
Your money, Music
love
BC,
you.
and support.
Yeah, totally. All of the above.
All of the above.
Very grateful. It makes us such a massive difference. So that's a really big difference here, is that we have that. And yeah, So it's nice to be back. I think, like, you know, there's not as many individual people here as there are in some of the other cities that I have spent time in, and so that is like a difference.
What do you mean? Like not as many individual people?
Yeah, like simply the population is smaller here
Okay.
than like Toronto or LA, and I think that it makes for a close-knit community vibe that I really value and love.
Totally.
Yeah.
And not super saturation of like we can really access these funds and support and each other.
Yes. Yeah. All of that. Yeah. So it feels good. It's kind of like, it's like a nice big community kind of fam where people are just supportive. That's the vibe that I tap into, that I'm seeing. So
I always like to describe Vancity as like big enough and small enough at the same time. Which is nice. It's a nice in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to jump back for a second. What is something you would love to say to anyone, you know, because what you shared about your family is so powerful. And like, it's like what every person coming out to their family would hope they could receive one day. And some never do, you know? What is something that you would love to impart to anybody who might be going through that process right now in their lives, like either transitioning or coming to terms with their own like queer identity, something that you wish maybe someone might have told you or that you can now impart?
Yeah, thank you. I think I would say, first of all, like, who you are is valid. Your identity is valid. Your experience is valid. And even if people who you love don't understand you, that doesn't mean that you don't exist. And I think that in my experience, the way that I have access to receive other people's love is through loving the parts of myself that feel unlovable. And I know that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but I think coming back to recognizing that I can say to myself, like, I hear and I see that you don't feel lovable right now, and I don't need you to change for me to love you. So having a relationship, building that relationship with our inner selves, I think makes it, for me, it's made me available to receive the love that my family does have for me, and it's made me available to believe that that love is real. And set your boundaries. Set whatever boundaries you gotta set. I have boundaries that I've set with lots of different family members at different times that they might not have been happy with or understand, but they felt authentic to me, for me to maintain a satisfactory level of mental health, and I wouldn't change a thing with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're coming close to the end of our time, live stream, 1 hour. I did have these last questions I wanted to ask you, and they're actually questions you asked us on the Museum of Forrest.
Oh, bet.
And something that was really dope that Jamal and I were reflecting on, going through your archives, was how going through each chapter was an opportunity to also self-reflect as you were doing these reflections for yourself. It's like, how could we reflect on our own journeys by being a witness to someone else? And so there are these 3 questions. I'm going to ask them back to you.
Amazing.
What is important to you now?
Yes. Unconditional love, and continuing to be curious about seeing how unconditional love is already present in my life and in my experience in different ways, and continuing to judge those all the existing places up.
Ooh, we like a good judge.
We like a good judge.
How do you express your values?
I I express my values in how I conduct my life, the choices I make, how I choose to spend my time, the presence that I have in little moments with other humans. That's how I express my values. Yeah. And how I garden my thoughts.
Garden your thoughts. What does that mean?
Well, to me it means what I choose to weed out, what I choose to replant, what I choose to water, what I put in the sun, how often do I open the blinds to let the sun in. That's what I think when I think of gardening my thoughts.
Ooh, another one that's gonna sit with me for a while. Fam,
Amazing.
going in.
Amazing.
Last question.
Yes.
What do you want to stand the test of time?
Love, y'all. I just like love, guys.
Aw, thank you, Forrest, for being our second guest on season 2.
Thank you so much for having me. Vancity,
This was really great. Yeah. I feel like I learned a lot about you in this last hour. Not gonna lie, I'm like struggling with day 3 moon time brain, so I'm like,
you did amazing. Yeah.
But you know, I felt held in your presence, and so much of what you said just like really resonated with me, and I'm sure with a lot of people who tuned in.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I felt really held in your presence too, and thank you for your thoughtful questions, and thank you to all who tuned in and were present with us, and thank you for receiving my story and my vibes.
Yes, you can continue to receive. Who's Steve?
We're Steven.
Continue to receive Forrest's vibes at. How can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on the internet at Forrest Mortifee. Forrest is spelled with 2 R's, Mortifee with 2 E's.
And how do we find your museum?
And the museum is at www. Museum of Forrest
with 2 R's.
With 2 R's.com.
Heck yes. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in, everyone who will watch the replay after, all the moms on Telesoptic TV. We appreciate you. This has been Kazi and Forrest, and you've been watching Vancity, Beats, Eats, and more.